Good evening. Good evening. Let's see. We're going to try to get Mr. Burnems on the screen. Let's see.
I think I'm here. Am I here?
Is this thing on?
Nothing like showing up with crumbs in your beard. I was trying to get a slice of pizza. Trying to get a slice of pizza before I jumped on.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm coming from you live from the chopper at Channel 8 News.
You gotta hold on to your ear.
Right. You know what I mean? Like I'm in here.
Well, look, man, I'm glad you're here, man. I'm glad you're safe. Good to be on screen. Good to see you.
Good to be seen, man. This is exciting. You know, I love working with y'all, and so I'm happy to be here. I'm exhausted, but I'm happy.
No, well, I think that's other than your mute is on. I think I'm exhausted and tired was like the second most theme for 2020 and 2021, hasn't it been? I mean,
basically, yeah.
When have you not been tired? I can't remember.
I've never been so exhausted and not left my house.
Right. I'm exhausted from sitting in this chair right here. So we're gonna try to make it fun, try to make it cool. We're gonna get you on the spot. We're gonna ask you some hard questions. We're definitely gonna get into what the work that you're doing, the great material you're putting out. So before we get into all that, I want to say hello. How are you guys doing? My name is Demetrius Frazier, co-founder and president of Black Men Read, the dopest literacy organization on the planet. Our mission is to inspire a community to read more, specifically Black males, but we do talk to everyone else in our community as well. We have a number of partnerships right here in the city, in Richmond, Henrico County, Chesterfield County, and we also have an international book club that just reached this weekend 1,000 members globally. So we're really excited. I wish I had an adult beverage here to celebrate, but we're going to keep it light and airy just in case, some other people see this. But if you ever want to connect with us, we are everywhere. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, soon on TikTok. We're on LinkedIn, whatever platform you got, we'll be there. And just for a note, we are actively looking for volunteers to help out. So my brother, my sister, if you're willing to help out in any capacity, financially, communication, we are here to help. Just a couple mechanics for people who are around. There is a poll option somewhere in the bottom of your screen. There's also a question box. If you have a question for Roscoe Burnems, I will make sure to get those asked. And there is a watch Traumedy on Amazon Prime. We're going to get to that. Roscoe, do not press it because it will turn off your camera. We found that out last time, so don't do that.
Okay, good to know.
All right, without further ado, we'll get into the discussion with Roscoe Burnems. I'm going to give a little introduction of him. He'll be able to respond to that. We'll ask a bunch of questions and get the conversation going. So our guest tonight, Douglas Powell, or for the cool kids in the room, Roscoe Burnems. He's a poet, published author, spoken word artist, comedian, educator, cook, president of the Baby Fan Club. He is everything and everywhere. As a slam poet, he has been a two-time regional finalist, National Poetry Slam champion, NPS Group Piece finalist, and NUPIC Underground Slam champion. He's the founder and member of the Writers Den Poetry Slam team and collective. And for all of us here in Virginia, we are most proud of Roscoe Burnems because of being named Richmond's, Virginia's first poet laureate. Please give me some emojis, some hand claps, some virtual sirens and horns for my brother and friend of the program, Roscoe Burnems. Hopefully I did that right. Did I miss anything?
No, you're good. That's quite an introduction. I've got to find a way to shorten that. I need to.
I mean, I didn't want to get too far into the Baby Fan Club president because not everybody knows that. We were going to say it's like a lead, it's a teaser, right? So you've been a lot of things, man. We could have read more.
I've made my way around. Yeah.
Like, do you feel like you accomplished that much, or is that just words on the paper?
Sometimes it doesn't feel real. I've been doing this for a while now. I really like when I think about the start of my career. Um, the stamp for that is June of 2009. That's when we first went to Southern Fried, which is like the biggest regional tournament in the country. And we went down. We were four. It was me and three other poets, all rookies. We had never been to a competition before. No coach, no guide, nothing. Right? We go and we place third out of like 40 teams. Just went in and just smacked everybody. People they didn't even know who we were. They didn't even know where Richmond was on the map.
In March
and they were
Madness,
like, Rich,
you were the underdog. You were the Cinderella.
Super. Nobody had heard of us before. Nobody. It was our first time even just being anywhere. And we went and we beat out 37 other teams basically. That's when we did that. I was like, I think I can do this. I think I can turn this into something. And I had loved poetry before. I had been around for a while doing open mics and stuff. But that was a major milestone for me. So since then, I hit the ground running.
Yeah, and you've been everywhere, man. It's the art scene. Talk about that work. You've been, performing live and virtually. All these things. I mean, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, the pandemic has been impactful in a lot of areas, but for someone like yourself, a performer who's used to going to stages, how's that been? As far as the adjustment, is there anything happening in your area?
So now Richmond is starting to get to a point where it's kind of like opening up again. So that's, I had mixed emotions about it. I want people to stay safe, but I too am tired of all the virtual stuff as well.
Right.
Again, it doesn't always feel real. Like I've had meetings, I've had shows, I've had workshops that have happened via, screen, and it doesn't. I'm there, but I don't feel as connected as I used to when you're in front of a classroom or in front of a group or in front of a stage or on a stage. So that part is I'm still working around that. But Richmond is getting into a place where it's opening back up. I have some things that I'm gonna do that are live and in person. So I'm really excited about that. But prior to that, it's like I said, like it's been exhausting. You know what I mean? But you're not even leaving your house. But it's just all the days start to run together, and all the appointments and all the shows start to run together too.
You did some events for us during the pandemic, and I remember it's like it's your house, right? It's
right.
There's not a stage behind you. There's no props,
and there's no break.
There's no break.
There's no break. He just like comes in. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm in a meeting. I'm doing a thing. Yeah, I'm working. He's like, "What does that mean?" And he just sees me. He just comes in anyway because there's no boundaries here.
And that's the unfortunate part, right? It's been a blur for us, but it's definitely a blur for the kids and for the family, right? So, shouts to the parents, the dads who are trying to make things like this work. So, you had mentioned about Richmond opening up.
Busy. Go to mommy.
You mentioned about Richmond
Say it one more time.
Up, and I wanted to talk about Richmond. We asked Cole Hicks this last week. And, for anyone who's not familiar with Richmond, let's say they've not been here, other than maybe a quick visit, I think the thing that gets lost is that Richmond is a special place. And as an outsider, it's always hard for me to describe it. You're a Richmond native. Like how would you describe it to someone if they've never been to Richmond? Like what kind of place this is?
It's Richmond is a very medium city. So it's a small. It's not a big city. It's not a big city, right? But it's not. It has these kind of small town vibe with these very big city aspirations. So it makes this kind of like in between kind of experience where you still have this very close knit community because everybody in Richmond knows everybody. Right. So you get that kind of close knit kind of community, but it has all these kind of big city kind of attractions when you really delve into the city. There's a ton of live pre-COVID. There's a ton of live music. There's a ton of concerts that makes its way through here. There's like ton of local celebrities and there's events popping up. There's a ton of great food. Right. amazing restaurants. You know what I mean? And the problem that I've always had with Richmond is that there's always a lot going on, but people will say, "Oh, there's nothing to do in Richmond." But I'm like, oh man, yo, I'm doing something all the time. I don't understand where you guys are, because Richmond has all these things going on, but you gotta find it. You gotta find Richmond has a ton of things happening literally every day of the week, but you gotta find it. And so you almost gotta know somebody who knows somebody. But that's kind of the great thing about Richmond, is because everybody kind of knows somebody. So if you don't know anything going on in Richmond, that means you haven't been asking any questions.
Yeah, it does feel like a connected family. Maybe that's the part I never really, as you explained it, that's the thing I never really realized, is that, you go on one side of town, and even though I'm in the East End, living in Chesterfield or whatever, I still see people that I know all the time. It's small enough to be small town, but big enough to have big things.
Yeah,
we got a lot of
it's very medium. It's a very medium city.
Yeah, it's very medium. So I'm gonna use that. I might put that on a t-shirt. And if you have any questions, make sure to put it in the chat. But so one of the things that that we do, and this is where we're going to start putting you on the spot, Mr. Roscoe. April is Books and Bars Month. So, of course, COVID has made it where we can't do it in person. But one of the things we're doing right now, we're in the Elite 8 of our Greatest Rapper Bracket Challenge.
Oh, yeah.
There's some matchups I want to get your opinion on. You like hip hop?
I am a hip hop head, man. I love hip hop. Hip hop was one of my first loves.
So we put it as rapper. I want to make sure you understand that part. Not top illest lyricist. It's you got to include the whole package.
Right.
And the Elite 8 matchups are Biggie versus Jay-Z, Tupac versus Snoop, T.I. versus Andre 3000, and Eminem versus Common. And I want to ask you the question. Got you on the spot here. You did not hear these matchups before this call. Which one of these matchups is most intriguing to you, if any, and why?
Oh man, it's a toss-up for me. So the two I think are the most intriguing is are Snoop and Pac.
Snoop and Pac.
And Common and M.
Okay.
Those are kind of intriguing for me. So, and the reason why is because when you're talking about the West Coast, right? The West Coast has a very, very clear-cut like foundation about who are the architects for the West Coast sound, right? And so once you take away NWA, right, then you're left with a handful of names, and two of those biggest names are Tupac and Snoop.
Yep.
So, it comes down to, for me, it kind of comes down to like who, like it's hard to say longevity. I mean, Pac gave us like 10 albums even after he died. So
that's longevity right there. Like
that's longevity, right? you were releasing albums from the dead. That's GOAT status.
I'm GOAT after I'm dead. Like that's crazy. Like,
but Snoop, man, Snoop is somebody who is really quick on his feet. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna say he's like the most lyrical, but he's got a great kind of wordplay that nobody else has, even particularly in the West Coast. And he's constantly reinventing himself. It's like, how do you not love Snoop? Snoop's done everything from hip hop to R&B to funk, reggae, and gospel. Those are all real things that he did.
He did all of them in an album, like not just one song, which some people do, but he's done albums with that whole theme.
Whole albums with those genres. So like, I don't know. I guess so that's really intriguing to me. I'm kind of leaning Snoop there, because he's been so versatile, and he's crossed a lot of he's crossed a lot of decades, a lot of generations, and still remain relevant and respected amongst all those newer generations. And I think there's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
And so the other intriguing one for me is Eminem and Common. So I know that, I mean, obviously, look, if you're talking about lyricism, right? Like I think for most people, the obvious do is going to be M, right? Because of the, he's a lyrical acrobat. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Common has bars, right? Common has been giving us bars for a long time, right? And he's got a very interesting way that he plays with words, and he's given us some really good albums. For me, they kind of have the same trajectory. They gave us some really solid albums, and then they kind of fell off, and then they picked back up. Common is just feel, like not that he's been underground, but he almost feels kind of like an underground legend because he doesn't get the mainstream love that he probably deserves.
No. And the crazy part about Common is I don't think he would ever want to be, in that very commercial state. He seems to always want to stay in that groove, which I guess it's just choice as an artist.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're talking about like best rapper and so for me that like not only am I looking at, for me personally, not only am I looking at lyrical content, but what have you added to the genre?
Mm-hmm.
And has there been some level of success there, mainstream success or otherwise? And I think the I don't want to say unfortunate reality, but the reality of it is that M has had the bigger, more successful career, has been more consistent when it comes to dropping albums, whether they, you think they've been good or not. I know he really loves the culture. I think he has added something to the culture, and opened up a lot of discussions about lyricism and about white people in hip hop. That, and I think Common hasn't. I think Common has always played it safe. I think he's always played it safe, and he's never done. I think he's, I'm a big Common fan, but I think he's only really given us maybe, like, for me, 3 spectacular albums.
So you going B?
Oh yeah. Oh, you better know it. B
like
is
Water
solid.
For Chocolate. Like, which one you going
like
with?
Water for Chocolate, and then One Day It'll All Make Sense.
Okay. All right. So you're not Universal.
That's kind of where I'm at.
You don't
know. And then there's even some albums in between there where I'm like, nah, we're just gonna pretend like that doesn't exist.
Yeah. and that's the hard part, right? So, taking artists like Biggie. So Biggie, for all intents and purposes, dropped 2 commercial albums. One was a double disc, but we'll just count as 2. And then you say, are those 2 albums his B and Water for Chocolate? And then we would have got a Universal Mind Control as the 3rd album. I think I know I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but I think that's where we were headed. I think that Biggie would have given us at least 1 bad album. You had to lay out all the hip hop artists and tell me that there's one artist that didn't give us one, who did a handful of
right. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen.
You got a bomb once.
Well, here's the thing though. Like Jay has given us. I'm not gonna count but he's given us a ton of albums, right? Mm-hmm. Even his worst is still better than most other people's albums. Kingdom Come is like not a great album. Kingdom Come was not a good album, but it was still like better than all of his contemporaries at the time, which is sad.
That's the sad part. It's not that it wasn't a bad album. It was just like he was still selling records because there was nothing else to buy. Like it was bad. I would also say not on my favorite list is Magna Carter. Didn't really care for that.
It was hit or miss for me. I liked about half of it.
Didn't really care for that. What was that 444 album? It was all right.
No, wait, no. That's an amazing Jay-Z album.
I wouldn't go amazing. And I'm not saying it was terrible. I'm just saying if we gotta go, what's the back half of his catalog as far as good, bad? It was probably in the...
We finally got because like whatever Kingdom Come was supposed to be, it wasn't. 444 was our first grown man Jay-Z album. Like he's not like still flipping bricks and I was on the corner by the McDonald's.
Right? He was like 45, but still flipping bricks and birds.
But he was. That's the problem. The problem is he wasn't. You know what I mean? He hadn't been a drug dealer for like 20 years at least. So by that time, you know what I mean? So like it was our first grown man Jay-Z album, and he was willing to actually talk about stuff that was happening in his life, like his marriage and everything like that. It was a
that's
vulnerable
an interesting point
album.
you just made. you just made the point that it was an amazing album, or good, really good album, whichever word you want to use, because of the advancement in the content and the subject matter.
I want my artist to grow.
I do too, but I want him to entertain me too a little bit. That's always been my knock against Nas. Nas has always been, wow, you're amazing. Your lyrical talent is on point, but man, you're not entertaining me right now. I love the. Did he wind up calling the nigga album? I can't remember.
That was the Hip Hop Is Dead album. Or was it the Untitled album?
Yeah,
that was the
whatever you called
album.
that one. Love the subject matter. I was all for it. Wasn't an entertaining album. Like it doesn't.
Nas has always had an issue with choosing beats.
Yeah,
like he has the worst ear for beats, and I think it's because look, he grew up in a time where the sound of hip hop was different, and he's such a purist. He's such a purist that he still wants almost this old 80s gritty New York kind of boom bap. This kind of, but we're not really there anymore. So he's never been able to really get away from that. And I think now in the latter albums, he's starting to kind of move away from that. He's got a better team around him that's like, no, you got to find something that's a little more contemporary, which is why King's Disease and Life is Good for me were pretty good albums. I'm like, these are pretty good albums. But like anything Streets Disciple and before is so hit or miss.
Yeah. And even Streets Disciple had a couple tracks. It was like, I really like it, but I can't say I love the whole album, the double disc there.
I hated that album so much. I'm so mad I bought it. I hated myself for buying it.
Did that one have Thief's Theme on it?
I think it was Thief's Theme. He had this really, Nas is one of those type of people. He give you this like very powers of the people kind of track, but he always wants to remind you that he's very hood. So it's like he had this like very like Martin Luther King-esque kind of track, and then the very next track, I'll never forget this. The song is called, and I apologize, "The Makings of a Perfect Bitch." That is.
All right, and he could have used that beat because the beat was all right. It just did better, but
yeah,
we can talk about it. So this is the thing, right? So listen to the people we talked about. People that have got longevity, people that have been in the game for a while, right? And so the bracket, even if we had younger people in there, J. Cole was in the bracket, lost, right? He happened to run up against 3,000. It's kind of hard to pick him against it.
No,
Kendrick was in there. Kendrick ran into Snoop, and it's kind of hard, right? Even though those artists are really good. So here's the question for you: who in that younger category would you say is like a slam dunk for being in a few years in that category, in that conversation, because they will have eliminated the bias for their longevity?
So I think once we get more albums from them, I mean, obviously J. Cole and Kendrick are going to be in that space. I think I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this too, but I think if she's consistent and giving us consistent albums, Meg is going to be in that. Meg is gonna be there.
I was waiting for Cardi B. I'm sorry.
Oh, nah. And I like Cardi. You know what I mean? Look, I'm not hating on Cardi. Like sometimes I like party rap. Like I don't want all my rap to sound like Common. I don't want all my rap to sound like Common or Nas. I don't want all my rap to sound like Jay. You know what I mean? Like I'm a big Outkast fan, but I don't even want all my hip hop to sound like Outkast. I love the fact that that hip hop is such a wide spectrum, huge. You know what I mean? So. I think Cardi has a place and a voice in that. I don't think she's given us spectacular projects. I think Cardi is one of those people who gives us great singles, right? She gives us these really great singles
for a while, right?
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna hear WAP 5-7 years down the line. You just are. You know what I mean? Like so.
And the bad part, somebody's auntie's gonna be dancing to that. 20 years. From now.
20 years from now, somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, back in my day, we had real music put on WAP." Man,
I feel for this generation, man. Their throwback songs are gonna be interesting.
Ooh. I grew up in. I'm 35. And so I grew up in this nice little niche, right? Because I kind of got the peak of like 90s hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like I fell in love with hip hop the first time I heard Heavy D. That was the starting point for me, right?
That's
So I always had this like, yeah, you know, that was back when and Heavy D, I was a chubby kid. So Heavy D I was watching him on stage moving. He was moving. Right. That was back when it was cool for rappers to dance.
I mean, you could also have been the coolest and handsomest in Big Daddy Kane and dance. Like,
yeah, and still had some move, and you kind of had to, right? Because you had to put on a show. It was still that generation where you still had to put on a show.
Right.
And then so I came in at the peak of 90s hip hop, but then I'm very much high school was like 2000s for me, right? So that's the introduction of like Luda and then Snap Rap, Little John, and you know what I mean? So like, you know, that was right around the time where people are complaining about, oh, hip hop ain't hip hop no more. Like, so some of my throwback songs are like, you know, Hard Knock Life, but some of my throwback songs are like Nelly.
Right.
Like Hot in Here comes on and I lose my mind. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, it's a weird mix, right? I mean, and I'm a little older than you, and so I got the full breath of the 90s, but I also saw the ramp up. So it was a lot of that late 80s hip hop that wasn't, you know, there was nothing lyrical about all those guys. You know, they were just trying to get records out. They didn't have the radio play that a lot of people had, and it was dominated by DJs. So in that era, it was, if you didn't know Marley Marl or DJ Red Alert or whoever was running the station, you didn't get airplay. So you had to have songs that mimicked kind of their sound. So that's where, you know, people like Outkast came in and were very different, and they would have never survived back then. So I'm glad things have changed from that paradigm. I can't imagine.
I think, you know, it's funny because I think
on a premiere beat like it.
I think it's funny though, because I think what would have happened if that had been the case is what you would have had is Organized Noise featuring Outkast. You see what I'm saying? Like, because it was so built around the production.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You would have had whoever their DJ was, or whoever was putting the beats, you know what I mean? Whoever was handling that, Organized Noise would have been the forefront, and they would have had this camp of artists that toured with them essentially. I
mean, you think about it. I mean, Eric B. and Rakim, like it was one of the greatest lyricists ever, and you were the second name. Like it was
I was kicking it with my son, and he's starting to develop this love for hip hop. So we put on, you know, different songs, whatever, while we just doing stuff in the house. And I always forget that it was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
Exactly. I mean, it was big. You had to have a DJ, and that had a lot to do with the party atmosphere, how you got your connections, things like that. So it made sense back then. I'm glad we have changed and evolved. The DJs are still involved. I think that's important for the culture, but it definitely has changed quite a bit. And I joke about you being the Baby fan, but you know, we won't blow up your affinity for the Baby and Little Baby and Lil Yachty.
I like both of them. I'm not, you know, I need my hip hop to sound different sometimes, you know what I mean? And is he gonna be like one of the greatest rappers ever? No. By no stretch of the imagination. But you know what I mean, he gonna show up on the track, he gonna give you a couple bars every once in a while, and I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Him and Lil Baby.
I think he's hilarious. I anytime I scroll and he's on, I stop. Like I think he's a great personality. So I'm just gonna spot a little bit. We've been talking brackets, and then we'll switch into poetry and poet slams. And if we did a hip hop style bracket for poetry, slam poetry specifically, who's your final? I don't want the who's in the field. I want we get to the end. Like our bracket's going to end up with probably Biggie and maybe Eminem, or Biggie and 3000 or whatever. It's going to end with some titans. Who are the titans in poetry slam for you?
Who are the titans in poetry slam? So one actually happens to be a good friend of mine. He's like the current world champion, one of the current world champions, and that's Breeze the Poet.
Okay.
from Richmond, lived in 757 for a little while, you know what I mean? But born and bred here, and he's probably one of the best. Like, he's one of the most dynamic performers you'll see on a stage.
Okay.
And he's got a track record to prove it. Yeah, so like, he's definitely a titan in slam poetry. A name you'll probably hear a lot is Rudy Francisco. Probably one of the most recognizable names in poetry. He's been on Jimmy Fallon. He's toured the world. A poet named Icon from out of New Orleans. She's done everything. She's a beast. Ebony Stewart, Edward Mabry, me.
I mean,
I never like putting myself first, and I'm also not a person who gasses myself up a lot. But
right.
I've been around, and I've
yeah.
Lance said we just won the final two. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
So it sounds like, I've listened to Breeze. I've met Breeze. He feels to me, if I had, give him a parallel, he's Biggie. He comes with a lot of energy. Yeah. He's talented.
He's X.
Oh, he's X. Okay.
He's X. If you gotta put somebody on him, yeah, he's X. Yeah.
So who's the other one going against Breeze? One person.
Oh man. You know what? I'm gonna go with Rudy. I'm gonna go with Rudy.
And who's the
Rudy Francisco
in hip hop world for Rudy?
Oh man, Rudy.
Jay-Z?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with Jigga. Yeah, because he's a smooth storyteller. You know what I mean? He's not gonna yell at you. You know what I mean? He's just there to drop the gems.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just loud on that one because you gave me 8. You were like,
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's like we do the GOAT conversation. You know who needs to be in the conversation? Robert Horry, because he's got 6 rings, and he's been in the final.
I am that guy though.
No, don't be that guy.
I am that guy, because they were like, "Oh, well, Jordan's got 6 rings." I'm like, Robert Horry has 7 rings.
Right? No.
So like,
GOAT, not who has the most time on the bench and come in with no sweat and makes 1 shot. We don't want that.
Big Shot Bob is look on. You're not gonna shade Big Shot Bob. I love Robert Horry so much.
What always killed me is that you would watch the replay. There's not a bead of sweat because the dude came off the bench. There was 8 minutes left in the game. He may have got a few minutes left, and he just makes the 1 shot that no one else could make except for maybe Jordan.
Man. He's gonna give you like 9 points, but they're gonna be like the most effective 9 points ever.
Every time. Like I've never seen a player like that. So I appreciate you being humble, at least, not putting yourself in the top. But a lot of people talk about you. I've actually heard a lot of, because Richmond's small. They love you. Love a lot of things about you, and I think we want to switch gears a little bit, talk about family, your son, your daughter, all the good stuff. You look at your Facebook feed, we can't miss it. But a lot of people talk about being, loving and caring and being a good dad, and I think they don't live up to it. But from every description that we've gotten about you and from you and our experiences with you, seem like you live up to it. So I do appreciate that and love that about you. I just want to, kind of get to, though, where does it come from? And not trying to give away the whole story, but, say knock, knock. What was the joke you put on Traumedy?
Like, knock, knock, who's there? Not my father.
Yes, that's the word. So, like, where do you get this loving dad, loving friend, loving brother kind of attitude and mentality?
A long history of neglect.
So this is what happened to me. I'm gonna do the exact opposite. It'll work.
I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a parent when I was about 10. I knew I wanted kids, and I wanted the whole 9. I wanted the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, a dog, wife, the whole. Dog, I wanted that.
Goldfish.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I wanted the, what they used to paint as the American family, right? The American dream. Like, I wanted that, and it's because I didn't have it. I didn't have that at all. You know what I mean? It was me, my brother, my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my aunt, all living in the same 2-bedroom house.
Wow.
Right. So I shared a room with my mom and my brother till I was 13 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
And we lived in the attic. We lived in the attic of my grandmother's house. You know what I mean? So one bathroom. There's just, mind you, there's 6 people in this house. There's one bathroom,
I would
right?
be
So
getting up
you learn
really
to
early
share.
to get some of that hot water.
So I had it gave me like an appreciation. You know, it embittered me first. Let me be very honest about that. It embittered me first, but it later gave me like such an appreciation for a hard work ethic, which my mom had, and it gave me an appreciation for what I ended up having later, right? Just being able to get out on my own and have my own. I had such an appreciation for it because of where, excuse me, because of where I came from. And my mom, I know I always piss off guys when I say this, but my mom was the best dad I could have had. You know what I mean? My mom didn't take nothing off anybody. She was stern, but she was fair. You know what I mean? As fair as she could be, or as fair as she knew how to be. She worked like crazy because she was taking care of pretty much everybody in the house. Like that work ethic, you know what I mean? Like that tenacity, you know what I mean? Like that's what I took with me going into fatherhood and raising my own kids, right? And so, I adjusted where I felt like, oh, I didn't like these things when I was growing up, so I'm gonna try to shift this around or whatever. But I took a lot of what my mom did and applied that to to my now to parenting my own children. So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for that. And it came with some hardships because me and my mom have been super up and down. But I've never for a second thought that she didn't love me or she wouldn't be there for me. And that alone kept us close even when we were at odds.
Yeah, so you had, if I counted right, maybe 5 or 6 people live in the same house.
Yeah, my aunt moved out after, like a little, she was kind of back and forth, but yeah, up to 6 people, then 5. Yeah.
Yeah, close quarters. I mean, what was
Yeah.
what was the emotions like in there? I mean, because you talk about emotions quite a bit around one sharing your emotions, especially as a man with your son. But how did that work out? I mean, were you, hey mom, I love you, and your mom was, or she was trying to make you tougher because the father wasn't there?
Yeah, my mom was really like really hard with us. Like she wasn't really affectionate like at all.
Hmm.
And I just, we just kind of, it was normal. So I wasn't going to say like it was weird. It was normal for us. It didn't mean that I didn't want more affection.
Mm-hmm.
I saw people being affectionate with their kids. So it wasn't like I was oblivious to it. Right. But my mom just wasn't that. So, we didn't think nothing of it. But I did want that more. You know what I mean? And so I think that's kind of the why I am the way that I am with my kids. But yeah, she felt like she had to play both roles. So my mom, and she grew up in this time where, like, look, you got to raise boys to be tough, right? They can't be soft. The world isn't going to, isn't going to coddle you. Right. So you got to be tough. So she wasn't really affectionate. She didn't really do a whole lot of I love yous. We knew that she did, but she just didn't really say it. She didn't do hugging and kissing for real. Like that came later as we got like to adulthood. Then that was weird. That part was weird.
No, get off me.
Like, what are you doing? And then she revealed later when we got older, and my mom was having like a ton of health issues, and I was, taking care of her. And she was pretty transparent as we got older. And she was like, well, I wanted to be more affectionate. Like I wanted to be able to hug and hold and kiss and, coddle you, but I couldn't. You know what I mean? There was no man in the house to balance it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. She was trying to juggle the 2 roles.
Right.
Yeah. I can see that.
So my mom showed me everything. My mom showed me how to sew. She showed me how to fix a car. I chopped down branches off a tree. My mom showed me everything.
She was going down 2 lists. She had the dad list and the mom list. Like, well, he got to learn how to be able to make a souffle and start a fire. Like he's got to do both.
Yeah.
I don't know where the starting fire would help you in Richmond, but you got to have it.
But you know what I mean. But now I know how to I can do hair. You know what I mean, and right. I can replace your radiator.
Yeah,
those are 2 things
I
can
do. Quite a bit of change too when things start breaking down, which they always seem to do.
Yeah.
So you're like I said in this conversation. I mean, you do a lot and know a lot. I mean, you've written books, you perform, been on stages. Like how? I mean, I know how I do it with no sleep. With like I'm doing 2 calls at once, like I did today. I'm on one, turn the camera off on that one, and do this one. You know how do you juggle it all?
Not well. I I look, my wife will tell you that I stretch myself pretty thin.
Mm.
I've become used to it because this has just been life for me since I was 13. So I'm pretty used to it. But yeah, I mean I there's no down moments. I was almost late for this because I was like trying to fix my website and respond to some emails.
Right, because you got
So
5 things going at once, right? So,
yeah, so it's and so it's just you just learn to I was beating myself up earlier because I was like I'm horrible with time management, and I still feel that way sometimes. I feel like I'm not able to like juggle the time as as best I can, but I'm able to work in a million things in 24 hours. And so that's become a skill set. I learned that from my mother as well.
I
How to get a bunch of
almost
things
feel
done.
like, and not trying to put you in, Beyonce status, but you know how they have those people that walk around with them and manage their calendar and pull them when they need to go this way and put a jacket on because they forgot it because it's raining outside. Like,
And I need
I
that.
think you could benefit from that person.
I need that. I need that. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saving up for next is a personal assistant.
Personal assistant, like all the time, like
Yeah.
on top of it. So I do want to get into some of your specific work that you're doing. For those who are here, the button down at the bottom, Traumedy, streaming live on Amazon Prime. I do want to talk about that specific project. For those who don't know, you have a super dope show. It was amazing. It's on Amazon Prime, like I mentioned. Can you describe the show? What's it all about? How did the idea come up, and what made you do it?
All right. So I know I say I don't like gassing myself up, but I'm really excited about the things that I have going and some things that I have coming up. So Traumedy. Traumedy is a project it's my most it's the work that I'm most proud of to date. It is this comedic and poetic interrogation, if you will, of mental health within Black culture. From my perspective as a Black man, especially, and what that looks like for me from childhood to now, from just growing up to now being a dad and raising 2 kids. So it takes on this whole narrative from beginning to end of my journey to today, and it's hilarious. It's full of jokes, and it's full of like really poignant, very insightful poetry that is really vulnerable. Like I don't hold anything back. The content is raw. It's unpolished. It's relatable. It's relatable to just the human experience. You know what I mean? Like the what I experience specifically may pertain to just me, but the emotions that I'm describing are part of the human experience and things that we've all experienced, from depression to sadness, grief, rejection, addiction, just all the things. I cover all the things.
Oh yeah, you go through you go through the entire gamut of it all. From you're very open about a lot of things as well. And one of the things that we talked about a little bit is I think it's highlighted in there, and I want to talk about the real version of it. Is that inside of there you talk about your dad, and we won't rehash all of the issues that Black men specifically had with fatherhood, whether their father wasn't there, father wasn't emotionally there, whatever. But you talked about how you address your children and try to be the best dad you can be. I think I speak for you when I say, fatherhood is probably one of the best things ever that's happened in my life. Would you say that, the things that you're doing are revolutionary or different or radical? Because you talk about like kissing your son on the forehead. You talk about, and this is inside of Trauma and in your work, you talk about being emotional, being available, and not pushing him into specific masculine or feminine paradigms, right? So like how you approach your children and raising your children is very different than what I would say is the textbook version of it. Talk about that a little bit and how you feel like you're doing these things and why you're doing these things.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I hate to think that it's radical. You know what I mean? Like, unconditional love for your children. Unconditional love shouldn't be this like radical thing. Oh man, controversy. He shows his children
but
affection.
In our community sometimes, well, I mean, just talk about our community. In our community sometimes it feels like it's not. I do the same thing that you're doing, which is if I love my son, I would say I love you. If I feel like kissing him on the forehead, they've grown used to it because I do it all the time, and they actually do a little bit back. Now I don't know if they kiss me on my forehead yet. We're working on that part. But I think I think when I say radical, I mean it's like it's not normal in a lot of cases for some fathers. They're still in the get up, boy, and rub some dirt on it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah,
100%. And I want to change that. I want to change that. I want to change that. I want to take away the stigma, first of all, of men showing affection to other men, right? Like I should be able to tell my homeboys, I love you, because they're my homeboys and I care about them. I want them to
and not have to masculine it up, right? I love you.
Right.
Man.
I ain't gotta, I love you, man. Bro, what up, bro? I say, all right, bro, what I'm saying? Right. I love you. You know what I mean? You gotta punch him in the chest right after, what I mean? Just, so like, nah, man, like I love you, you know what I mean? Cause you're my friend, you're my family, and I should love you.
Right.
So, and we should be able to say that and feel that openly without it questioning our masculinity. We've attached so much, romanticism to the phrase "I love you," even though we use it in non-romantic ways. Like you can tell your mom, you love her, and it doesn't mean that you're going to take her out on a date, right? So, so it's just ridiculous that we create these like stigmas around who we get to say it to and who gets shown that affection. So I want to end that. That's my first thing. I want to end that stigma, and I want to start normalizing the narrative of men showing love to their sons in particular. Because we don't really have the same debate with daughters. So it's really about like, tell your son, your toddler, that you love them and give them a hug. Like, cause kids want hugs sometimes, right? Sometimes kids are down. Sometimes they bump and bruise their knee. Sometimes they cry. And because kids do that, and kids should be allowed to do that, right? Not just girls. Girls shouldn't be the only ones that's allowed to cry. You know what I mean? Like my 4-year-old isn't trying to man up just yet. You know what I'm saying? He's 4. So, when he's hurt, when he's sad, when he's upset, like sometimes he's going to fuss and whatever. And, like you got to let him have that space to do that and know that that's okay. You know what I mean? You don't want to like start shutting him down emotionally, because then what happens is when you want him to break from that at some point, right? When a kid shuts down and they stop talking and they stop communicating in whatever way they were communicating before, when you shut all that down and then you're not getting anything from them, then you don't know what's going on with them emotionally, right? And they start internalizing, and when you let a kid internalize everything and kind of be left up to their own devices when it comes to rationalizing these feelings, they can make some bad decisions, right? Even adults make bad decisions. So you got to think this kid who's 10, 13, 16, he's gonna make bad decisions if it's left up to just him. The adults have to be responsible, and in addition to being responsible, you have to be accessible and open and nurturing, right? Kids need nurturing. So you can't limit that. You can't limit that just because of gender identity.
And do you think that leads to why specifically males don't reach out for therapy? I mean, they've been told to kind of handle it on their own internally without talking to somebody about it.
I still, 2021. I still get weird looks when I tell brothers that, oh yeah, I was talking to my therapist and she told me da 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 da. And so like, yeah, you get the crazy looks and you get the, I guess, yeah. Right. You know what I mean? Like
maybe he made his barber, like
right. But that's, look, the thing about it is, and I got a homeboy now who still is on the fence about it, even though he's seen my journey. Like, he's become more open about his own depression and things of that nature. But what happens is he calls me, and I'm like, I am not a therapist.
Right.
All right.
Just because
I know some
get
terms,
this therapy money for free, like,
nah, man, you need to go to somebody who can
really
is
help
paid to help you.
Yep.
And it's like, but for them, it's like, oh, what's the difference, right? If I just go to a friend and get some advice, it's all the same, and it's not, right? Like, one, as a friend, I'm still trying to figure it out, right? I'm still trying to get through my own stuff. You know what I mean? I don't always have all the answers, and that's not to say that a therapist has all the answers, but they are the skilled person here who can help you process this,
right,
and find healthy solutions. That's their job. Their job is to help you find healthy coping strategies to deal with whatever is going on inside you, or help you process that trauma. I, the friend, can be here to listen sometimes, but I am not about to sit on this couch with you every week because I got my own life. I got me, a wife, 2 kids. You know what I mean? That's not my job, right? That's not my job as a friend to be that all the time. You can't just throw that kind of burden on your friends. It's good to have a support system. You know what I mean? It's good to have a community and a network. But therapy is a real tool that can create real solutions, and people need to invest more in that.
And I think in an analogy, I think, your friendship and your family is really more like your emergency room. I've gone through this traumatic experience, this event, and I really need help in this particular moment, right? So then I can talk to you, Roscoe, this just happened. It's hurting me. I need to talk to somebody about it. But then even that, you get patched up just enough to get you through the moment. You should go and see the doctor to talk about either therapy or some kind of other solution.
Or something, yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna tell you the type of friend I am. I'm gonna let you vent, and then after you vent, I'm looking up therapists for you. Because you're gonna find
somebody in the West End, East End. Which one you want?
Yo, I am on findthetherapist.com while you are venting to me over the phone.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm sending you links ASAP.
And I definitely will do that if it's somebody that's coming back with the same type of, issue, because they haven't gone to somebody to talk about it. They just haven't dealt with it.
Yeah.
So, speaking of traumatic events, I mean, we just had, the issues and the conversations around George Floyd's trial, the murder of George Floyd. We also had another event that just happened in Ohio. A 16-year-old girl murdered, police brutality.
Right.
How do you handle Ma'Khia Bryant?
Okay. Yeah.
So how do you handle these conversations with your children? I know you got a much younger, but how do these conversations happen as a father with your children?
It's a weird space. So my kids are 14 and 4. So the 4-year-old, we're not having that conversations at all. That's just me being honest, right? Like, okay. I don't want to traumatize this kid so early or create this fear in law enforcement so early on. Like, it's just not the time. It's just not the time for that. Like, I want him to be in a space, where he can handle that kind of conversation maturely. With my daughter, we don't talk about every single thing that happens, every case, every name, every hashtag that comes up, because we be having a conversation every day.
Every day.
So, and at that age, it can be frightening. My daughter's 14, so like at that age, it can be frightening when you're having these like really in-depth conversations about police brutality and what it means to be Black in America, all the time. But we do have them because they're necessary. So it's always centered around, be careful, be safe. If things start to escalate, find a way to get yourself away from that situation as fast as possible. Call me before you call anybody else. so it's those are some of the talking points. And it's just, be aware, because you have to be all the time. You know, with that case with Micaiah, it sucks because, she was doing things to like defend herself. You know what I mean? Like she was trying to protect herself. She's the one who called the police. And she still, she was still murdered. And it's because as a culture, police culture, they aren't taught to de-escalate.
Right.
They're taught to arrest and apprehend and kill. So when that's what you're, particularly in certain environments, right? High crime areas, or certain populations. That's what they're shown. So yeah, he pulled up and asked no questions. This, for me, this was reminiscent of Tamir Rice. 13, it was 12-year-old boy. You know what I mean?
Before he was, yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing the whatever, the little street cam or whatever, and they pull up, they hopped out, and immediately fired. There was no like asking questions. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. And that's similar to what happened here. This cop gets called, they pull up, and as soon as they just see a rowdy group, they're firing shots. And I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like you're not trained to like get people to disperse, if nothing else.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like,
and even if you're worried about your own personal safety, I mean, he rolled up pretty close. Like you could have set a perimeter or something to try to, de-escalate and get the situation down. It just, and I think I made this comment to a friend group, but it's unnerving. It's exhausting because it takes a case like George Floyd's in high definition, plastered all over TV to get a conviction, not change in the police system, not, over, sweeping changes around everything else. It's just like, hey, all right, he's going to jail. That was pretty bad. Next. And then it was literally seconds, and the next one happens, right? So it's, we're always on this treadmill. And that's why I was wondering how you're approaching it with your children. Because I do the same. I try not to make it where it's like, don't go outside because you can get killed by the police. I don't want that fear. I still want them to love life and be happy and joyful and spend time with people. And
it's hard because I can't look, the honesty of it is, as a black man growing up in Richmond, I can't say that every interaction I've had with police officers has been bad. Right. I can't. I've legit had some helpful officers. I will admit those officers probably looked like me. but they were helpful. You know what I mean? They came in, they de-escalated, they didn't cause no issues, everybody left in the same condition that they came, saying they got there. So I can't say that every interaction has been bad. You know what I mean? Like, but I know that I've had some run-ins where I'm like, I'm not gonna make it out of here. Like, this is how my story ends. Like, that is a very real truth for me. And so I got a 14-year-old daughter who's a, kind of a girly girl. So I'm nervous because there's a ton of threats. There's a long list of threats for Black women, police included, obviously. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't even know where to begin sometimes with those conversations outside of keep yourself safe. If anything looks strange, off, awry, any red flags at all, you remove yourself from the situation as best you can, as fast as you can.
And I think that's the mental load that, the hidden thing that's killing us, right? It's having to be on guard like that all the time. It's no matter, even if it's police or some other situation, it seems like we never turn it off. So I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to manage as a father, but it's tough, man.
It's hard.
It is hard. So I do want to get to this. We did have some responses to the question, have you been to therapies? About, yes, and I think I should. Right, so that's good. We're not at 100% no, which is good.
Right.
And then also, some of the comments around kids growing up too fast. They're forced to because of all of the adult things that are thrown at them. One comment said we need to normalize being open about what we feel emotionally and normalize seeking help. I think that comment right there and enough by itself, if we can get better at that, especially when things come up for us, especially as men. I'm gonna say I'm not the greatest at that. I kind of like, let me at least kind of sort out my issues. That's an improvement from where I was. So now I'm like, at least give me an hour. Let me sort this out. Where I probably could have gotten through that process a lot faster because it's almost never just an hour. So I think that's one thing we could normalize and be better. And the comments around de-escalating the situation. The one piece of training no cop has ever messed up is shoot to kill.
Facts. That is very true. And it's such a the arguments of how cops are so on edge and fearing for their life and look, and I understand what they're trying to say, but listen, I as an educator, I was an educator for about 5-6 years, and in the classroom, and I worked entirely with alternative schools. So these are all kids who had records, felony convictions, violent behavior, so on and so forth, right? These are kids that will fight you.
Right.
So I'm in there. I'm in there as an educator. And I was there as at 2 different schools as a behavior specialist. We have to know how to de-escalate a situation, right? If a kid comes and they're fighting, so on and so forth. If a kid brings a knife to school, so on and so forth. All of which have happened while I've been an educator, right? I know how to go into a classroom where a 14-year-old boy has thrown on over every desk and has had a knife out ready to stab a teacher. I know how to go in there, de-escalate a situation, and get this kid to walk out with me, right? Or if this kid won't calm down, how do we safely get a hold of this kid so he doesn't hurt himself or anybody else? I know how to do that as a person who's just worked in a classroom for about 5 or 6 years. Police should know how to do that.
Right.
There's no reason why a police officer shouldn't know how to do that. It's absolutely ridiculous. I should not be better trained to show up to that situation with Micaiah and know how to handle it better than a police officer.
Yeah, it's
absolutely ridiculous. But it's also a conversation about how we have police officers do too many things. Police officers have to handle murders. They have to handle domestic disputes. They have to handle mental health crisis. Fights between kids. They're handling way too many things, right? And that causes the level of how they approach things. That it varies in such a great deal. You leave from a drug bust and then you got to go and handle a mental health crisis. That's a big switch.
Right. They handle an active shooter situation with the same level and intensity as like you said, a mental health situation. Those are not the same tactics you would use.
No, so when it comes to certain things, police officers shouldn't be dispatched. When it comes to certain things, we need other groups. There needs to be other things. There's things where you need mental health workers to go and assess the situation, not somebody who's trained to shoot and kill.
Right. Yeah. So we got a few more minutes. I didn't want to get into the things that you have coming up. You have one specific
hard switch. Hard switch.
Because as a father, your father, I have these same things. Every time I look at the news, I'm thinking, oh, how do I deal with this now? Like, what's the next thing? But I did want to talk about this one because you have something around fatherhood coming up, correct?
Yes. So I'm really excited about this. We're locking down all the details for it, but so I'll be posting more about it soon, very soon. So it's a weekend show. It's a weekend of shows. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. June 18th, 19th, 20th. So it's Father's Day, the day before, which is June 19th, which is Juneteenth. And then we're probably going to do a Friday show as well. And so 3 shows. It's called My Life as a Black Dad. So I did it that weekend on purpose. I want to talk about the Black experience. I want to talk about fatherhood. And those things kind of run together for me. So we're going to be talking about the intersectionality of those things. And it's going to be kind of set up like Traumedy, right? Like I'm going to tell some funny stories. I'm going to talk about my kids, but we're going to have really open discussions about culture and fatherhood and what that looks like when you're watching the news, and what that looks like at home, and and all the facets of that. I'm excited to talk about it. One, because I've kind of run the gamut of fatherhood. I was a single dad for a while, raising my daughter. Got custody of her when she was 4. And so I was a single dad for a minute, and I was a dad that was dating, and then I was a dad raising a girl on top of that, you know what I mean? Pretty much by myself. And now I'm the married dad, right? And now raising a son. So I've gotten a little taste of kind of, all the different aspects of fatherhood, you know what I mean? So I'm excited to talk about it and continue to share my story. I think it's going to be fun, but I also think it's going to be like a really like good conversation to have for people of color, or anybody who wants to come and enjoy the show, really.
So we got that. Anything else you got coming up, and then we'll get your links and then make sure people know where to get you, where to connect with you.
Okay. So My Life as a Black Dad is coming up. That's kind of Juneteenth weekend, Father's Day weekend. And then I am going to be hosting a monthly poetry and comedy open mic, if you will. It's more like a showcase. That's going to be happening at the Hoff in Richmond, Virginia, starting at the beginning of June 6th. And so it's combining two loves of mine. Like I love spoken word. I really love comedy. So it's really just a cheat, right? I get to see some funny comedians that I want to bring through. I get to see some dope poets that I love. And everybody else gets to enjoy it as well. So I'm really excited to continue to combine these two worlds that I've loved since I was a child.
All right. So where can they find you? What?
All right. Social media. Social media is at Roscoe Burnems, RoscoeBurnems. So I'm pretty easy to find. That's what it is on all social media. It's I guess it's right down here. You just type that in, the Roscoe Burnems there. So I'm easy to find. There's not a lot of Roscoe Burnems is floating around. So I'll pop right up if you type in the stage name. And so follow me and on all the social media platforms. I'm mostly on like Facebook, Instagram, and I'm using Twitter more often. So and I'll be posting about things that I got going on, things that are happening in the city, things that I'm doing. I post a lot about my kids, so you'll probably see random pictures of a cute toddler running around my house.
That was one of the things.
Yes. Wednesday is Science Day, man. So I take a lot of pictures during Science Day.
Well, yeah, we didn't even talk about that. You teach from home, right?
Yeah, man. Like this kid he's a sponge. This kid is a whole sponge. My daughter, like I people like falling all over my son because he's 4 and he's reading at like a first, second grade level. He's like, yeah, he's an adorable kid. He's got huge dimples, everybody. But my daughter is like a low key genius. Like she's had honors classes for the last couple of years. Like she's always been top of her class. She's absolutely remarkable. She's super artistic. I am always impressed, but she's so quiet about it. She don't like a lot of attention. You know what I mean? She's the introvert. So she just wants to like be in her own little space. Don't bother me. No, I don't want to take no pictures, no paparazzi, that kind of thing.
Right.
My son is the one who's like in the camera all the time. As soon as I'm like, I'm taking a picture, he's like, he's right there. He's ready.
No, that's perfect, man. He's an adorable kid. So, yeah. And also I think you celebrated a recent wedding anniversary.
Yeah, 5 years married.
5 years. So Black love.
We just moved into a brand new house. And so we've been working real hard. And the kids are at home. I'm educating the kids. They were fortunate, as far as I'm concerned. They're fortunate. They might disagree to have a former teacher in the house.
Yeah, they wouldn't say that. They might say it later. They're not gonna say it now.
My daughter always gives me a bunch of shade, but as soon as she doesn't know how to do something, she's like at my door.
All right, so we got all your. Actually, it looks like we got a question. Will there be a Traumedy 2?
Okay, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking about this in interviews, but I will say this. So my life as a black dad is going to be something very similar to Traumedy, right? So I'm going to be telling jokes and funny stories and doing poems. But something that we're working on, and it's still a little far off, but we are working on a Kings of Traumedy. So I'm teaming up with some poets who also have some comedy experience, and we're gonna put together this like quartet of sorts, to do a Kings of Traumedy. So I'm really excited about getting that in the working stages. I've reached out to a few people, and we've got some things in works, and we're gonna figure out the rest and soon.
And I think I saw where Traumedy is also going to be in more platforms, correct?
Yes. So right now we're on Amazon Prime, so that's where I would encourage everyone to watch it. But in the upcoming weeks, the process is so slow. But in the upcoming weeks, we'll also be on Tubi, which is another fairly decent big streaming platform. And one that I was introduced to is a streaming platform called Plex. They picked it up.
Love Plex.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm learning. I don't, there's a million streaming platforms now. So I'm kind of learning as I go. I knew about Tubi. I have Tubi on my phone. We have Tubi on the TV here. So I knew about Tubi, but I didn't know about Plex. So the way that it works is when you start getting more streams, we work through Film Hub. They're an independent distributor. So once your numbers start to climb, they start pitching you to more channels.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
so we had been on Amazon Prime for a little while. Numbers are starting to do well again, and so they're like, okay, well, let's put it here, and let's put it here, and let's put it here. So I'm excited.
All right. So, put you on the spot before we close out. These are not scripted questions. You are on the spot and you have to answer.
Oh man. Okay, here we go.
All right. So, you ready? It's 4 questions. What is your favorite restaurant? And yes, you're gonna get in trouble if you say the wrong one.
You know a spot that my wife and I like right now is Anna's. It's an Italian spot out here in Chesterfield. So I'll go with that.
Okay. Who is the best spades player you know?
Not me. Next question.
Come on. Is
Man.
it Breeze? Is it
Oh man, best spades player I know. Best spades player I know is my homegirl Sherry. She's a poet out of Dallas. We call her Candy. Candy is her nickname. But
Okay.
Candy, on the spades table, she everything but sweet. She everything but sweet. She gonna talk mad junk to you too. But I ain't never seen her lose a hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sugar or salt and pepper in your grits?
Oh, come on, man. Like, don't do this to me. Look, we were having a good time here.
Yeah, we
Come on, man.
We're gonna start separating households here. Like.
My wife would say salt and pepper and butter. Sometimes a little cheese. I would say sugar. I would say sugar.
I'm glad we did this at the end. Maybe Breeze is my
sometimes
new
a little
favorite
brown
poet
sugar.
now.
Sometimes a little brown sugar, depending if I'm feeling fancy.
All right. And last but not least, we're a literacy platform. What's the last good book you read?
The last good book I read was, oh man, it's on my bookshelf. It was the title escapes me, but it is the first poetry collection from a gentleman named Jay Ward, Jay. Jay Ward from out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Absolute brilliant poet.
Okay.
Easily one of the best writers I've ever seen. Amazing book. I'm mad the title is escaping me right now, but Jay Ward, Jayward, Jay Ward. His most recent collection was fantastic.
Right. Jay Ward, we gotta check him out. And Lance says, if you say sugar, we got a problem, and then you said sugar. And of course, my wife. Again, this is our household, right? So my wife is sugar.
Yes,
it's almost like
she knows what it is. Team Sugar.
Right, she's also Richmond, so I think it's a Richmond thing. I'm gonna go with that. It is definitely salt and pepper. So I'm assuming you don't eat grits with fish. You don't do that, fish and grits.
Nah, I don't really do a lot of fish and grits.
Okay, right.
It's very much a breakfast thing for me.
Well, grits, right?
Yeah, grits. Grits. It was like a breakfast thing for me. So we always kind of made it kind of sweet. My aunt is really the only one. My great aunt, my aunt Dot, is the only one who really made it all the time, and she would usually make it sweet.
Okay. All right. Well, we're not going to say anything bad about Aunt Dot because the way Richard
Please
works,
don't.
I mean,
She's
he
my
rolls
favorite
up in
aunt.
here and she a Kroger. You're like, get stabbed in the back for saying something wrong about Aunt Dot's grits. But look, Roscoe, it's always fun. We got to get you. We got to see you in person. So let us know when you got your events coming up. We'll definitely post on the platform. I can't wait to see you on stage again, man. I like last time I
Me
saw
too.
you, you were at the Hoff, and I think it was a rap showcase. Radio B was putting something on.
Oh
I
yeah.
caught the end of that, and I saw Cole Hicks as well and some other artists. But yeah, we got to see you on stage, man.
I'm
It,
excited, man. That's why I'm excited about this Father's Day show. So like, that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be very intimate, kind of an unplugged kind of thing, and I'm excited just to be in front of a crowd again.
yeah, I don't know how you do it because your energy, your passion. I don't know how you do it in front of a camera with no claps, no audiences, no finger snaps. Right?
It's honestly it's very difficult. I've hit like a slump, man. Creatively, it's hard. It's really really
Yeah.
difficult.
But we're back open. Everybody's getting shots in their arms, so we should be back out in the public soon. But we really
Yes, I
appreciate
am
you.
fully vaccinated. Boom boom.
I just
Shouts
got
out to
my first
Pfizer.
shot this week, so I think 3 more weeks before I get the next one. I'll be
Yeah.
done and clear. So appreciate you coming on, my brother. Definitely love the
Thank
work
you.
that you're doing. Love that you're supporting us, and congratulations again. 5 years in on marriage, loving family, new house, Traumedy. I mean, this is winning season for you, sir. And of course,
Winning
the
season.
poet laureate. So we love everything about it. We're rooting for you to go even higher. So without delaying it anymore, thank you. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Make sure to check out Roscoe Burnems and all his platforms, and make sure to go and see him. Support the artists too. Buy them tickets, buy the t-shirts, buy the books.
Yes, buy all of it.
Green Traumedy, green button at the bottom. Make sure you go check them out on Amazon Prime and all the new works that come out after that. Other than that, everyone have a wonderful evening. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you on the next time.